Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy my stories.
It started with the volleyball net. I had no idea that a simple attempt to spend quality time with my daughter in our own backyard would set off a chain of events that would turn my life into a living nightmare. My home sits in a small HOA community, with the houses all lined up neatly on one side of the road. My lot is unique. 2 lakes on either side take up most of the backyard views for my neighbors, and my yard itself is filled with trees. I thought it was idyllic. The neighbors, apparently, they thought otherwise. At first it was little things, comments about how my trees were too dense, or that I should consider cutting a few down to open up the view. I brushed them off. I figured it was just nosy neighbors being nosy. But then I started to notice something strange. Several of my neighbors had no curtains on the windows that faced my backyard. None. Their wide uncovered windows felt like eyes, watching my every move when I was out in my yard. It made me uneasy, but what could I say? Hey, put up some curtains because I feel like a zoo animal over here. Then came the architecture committee. That's when things turned hostile. The first meeting I attended was about the volleyball net. My daughter and I had set it up in a clearing among the trees in our backyard. It was the only flat spot big enough, and we were excited to have something to do together outside. We didn't think we needed permission. It was a volleyball net, not a pool or a garage. But one of my neighbors across the lake saw it and, apparently, lost her mind. She didn't even submit a request, I heard one of them say at the meeting, like I had committed some heinous crime. Never mind the fact that another neighbor had a volleyball net that was never approved by the HOA either. But his was tucked behind a 6-foot privacy fence, so out of sight, out of mind. Mine, on the other hand, was visible. And that was unacceptable. What followed was a ridiculous debate where they tried to figure out how to retroactively block the volleyball net. One committee member actually said, "It's not about the net, it's about her being able to see into our homes when she's in her yard." Another chimed in, "I don't want her looking at my family. It's invasive." Invasive? I was on my own property. They had the audacity to make it sound like I was spying on them, when they were the ones refusing to put up curtains. One woman, let's call her Linda because she had the energy of a Linda, said, "I change my disabled daughter's diapers near the window, and I don't want her seeing that." I blinked at her, speechless. Curtains, Linda. Have you heard of curtains? But no, instead of solving their problem with a simple trip to the hardware store, they decided to make the problem. Then came the privacy fence debacle. After the volleyball net fiasco, I thought, fine, I'll just put up a fence and block their view entirely. Problem solved, right? Wrong. The moment I submitted my request, the committee descended on it like vultures. They rejected it outright. The reason? It would block the scenic view for the community. Scenic view? My yard wasn't part of a public park. It was my private property. One neighbor, Tom, who never seemed to mind his own business, went on a tirade during a meeting. "You don't understand," he said, red-faced and nearly shouting. "The whole community enjoys looking at those trees. It's not just your yard, it's part of our environment." "Our environment," I snapped. "Then why don't you pay part of my property taxes if you think my yard belongs to everyone?" That shut him up, but only for a moment. The rejection stood, and they warned me not to install the fence without approval. Next, they started nitpicking every single thing I did in my backyard. When I tried to put up a small pergola for shade, they rejected the request. Their reason? It encourages prolonged activity in the backyard, which infringes on the privacy of others. I kid you not, that was their argument. They didn't want me spending too much time in my own yard because didn't like the idea of me being able to see them. It was as if they were trying to control my life by controlling my yard. They said no to the pergola, no to a small garden shed, and even no to a tree swing for my daughter. Every time I submitted a request, it was the same story. It's not in harmony with the community aesthetic, or it impacts the privacy of others. The privacy of others? What about my privacy? I decided to fight back. I started digging through the HOA's bylaws and architectural guidelines. That's when I discovered something interesting. Their own rules didn't support most of their rejections. In fact, many of their decisions were completely arbitrary. They were just making it up as they went along. Armed with this knowledge, I hired a lawyer and submitted an appeal. The HOA board did not take kindly to this. They called an emergency meeting where they spent over an hour vilifying me. They accused me of being combative, incooperative, and a bad neighbor. One board member even said, "If she doesn't like the way we do things here, she can move." Move? I had invested so much into this house. This was supposed to be my forever home. But they didn't care. They wanted me gone because I dared to stand up to them. My lawyer sent them a formal letter outlining all the ways they had violated their own rules. The board, in response, consulted not one, not two, but 3 different attorneys. All of them told the board the same thing. They were in the wrong. But instead of admitting defeat, they doubled down. They published meeting minutes that twisted the legal opinions to make it sound like they were in the right. It was infuriating. They spent thousands of dollars in legal fees, my HOA dues by the way, all to fight me over things that didn't even need approval in the first place. Meanwhile, I had to keep spending money on my own lawyer just to defend my right to enjoy my own property. The insults didn't stop there. Board members started spreading rumors about me to other neighbors. One of them told a neighbor that I was dangerous and unstable. Another claimed I was trying to destroy the community's harmony. It was absurd. All I wanted was to use my backyard without feeling like I was under constant surveillance. The legal battles dragged on for months. The HOA couldn't block any of my improvements in the end, but that didn't stop them from trying to make my life miserable. Every time I went outside, I felt their eyes on me. They had turned my dream home into a prison. And the worst part, they never learned. Even after they lost every legal challenge, even after wasting thousands of dollars, they never admitted they were wrong. Instead, they blamed me for being difficult. They didn't care about the truth. They just cared about winning, no matter the cost. To this day, I can't step into my backyard without feeling a mix of anger and exhaustion. The volleyball net is still there, and my daughter and I use it sometimes. But it's not the same. It doesn't feel like home anymore. It feels like a battlefield, one I never asked to fight on. You should just stand out in your backyard with a pair of broken binoculars and pretend to look into everyone's houses. It would make them think twice about the views they so desperately want to keep. Legally, you are protected in many states because privacy can only be expected if you have measures to block people looking in. Blinds, shutters, curtains, etc. However, the fact that the binoculars are broken would make it difficult for even cops who don't know the law, of which there are way too many, to charge you with anything. HOA people are just wild. Only time I've called them to ask a question, can I put lattice work on top of my dividing wall? He misunderstood, and though I wanted to report someone who had done it, the utter excitement in this 70-month's voice was shocking to me. I know his age because he'd brag in the HOA newsletter, and they always put the person's age. I can totally picture your lot rubbing their hands together, giggling over the fact they think they've pulled a fast one. Hope you are sending those emails to the local city council enforcement, or whomever covers that in your area. Geez, these HOA people are straight up nuts. Who the heck thinks they can tell someone not to use their own backyard? It's like they're trying to turn the neighborhood into some creepy Stepford Wives situation. I bet these are the same kind of folks who call the cops on kids' lemonade stands. The whole thing about the lady changing her kids' diapers where she can see into the guy's yard is just gross. Get some curtains, lady. This is why I'll never live anywhere with an HOA. They're just power-hungry jerks with nothing better to do than make everyone else miserable.
If you like our stories, then please like and subscribe and comment, and remember to hit that bell icon so you never miss out. We have new stories almost every day.
In justified fees, the first sign something was off came when my neighbor knocked on my door holding a certified letter. He was wearing his typical bemused expression, the one I'd seen when his sprinkler system exploded last summer. "This came for you," he said, holding out the envelope. It was thick, too thick for anything good. I tore it open right there on the porch while my neighbor shifted awkwardly. "Thanks," I muttered, more to the paper than to him, and his curiosity got the better of him as he leaned slightly to get a peek. "Attorney's office?" he asked, reading upside down. Apparently, my HOA had decided to send my file to their attorney. Why? Well, according to them, I owed $150 for legal preparation fees as of July 12th. The problem, my automatic payment had gone through on July 22nd, covering my usual HOA fees in full. "What the hell?" I muttered. I wasn't even late. My payment was on time like clockwork. "You good?" my neighbor asked, half smirking, half wincing like he knew how bad HOA nonsense could get. He'd had his own run-ins with them over some trivial violation about his fence paint color last year. "Yeah, I'm good," I lied. But I wasn't good. Not even close. The certified letter set the tone, but the real fun started when I checked my HOA account online. There it was, plain as day. A $150 fee added on July 12th, well before my automatic payment cleared. But that wasn't the kicker. On August 1st, they tacked on another $211. This time it was labeled as an attorney fee for notice to file a lien. A lien, over fees I had already paid. I dialed the HOA's management office so fast I nearly dropped my phone. Predictably, I got their automated system. "If you are calling about payments or fees, press 2, the robotic voice chirped. My blood pressure shot up as I listened to the cheery on-hold music loop. After what felt like hours, a woman answered. Her voice was sharp and efficient, like someone who'd been yelled at all day and was preemptively ready for a fight. "This is Brenda with Community Management Services. How can I help you?" "Yeah, Brenda, I'm calling about some fees on my account," I started, trying to keep my tone calm. "I made my regular payment on July 22nd, but I see a $150 fee from July 12th, and now another $211 attorney fee added August 1st. Can you explain why I'm being charged for something that was already paid?" Brenda sighed so loudly I could almost feel her frustration through the phone. "Those fees are valid," she snapped. "The $150 was for legal work to prepare your file for the attorney, and the $211 is the attorney's fee for the notice to file a lien. But my payment cleared on the 22nd, I said, my voice rising. "The fees should have been unnecessary. There was no delinquency." "That's not how it works," Brenda replied curtly. "Once the process is initiated, the fees are assessed. We can't reverse them." "Not how it works? Are you serious?" My calm facade was slipping fast. "So you're telling me I have to pay $361 in bogus fees even though I paid my HOA dues on time?" "Yes," she said simply, as though we were discussing the weather. I could feel the heat rising in my face. "Fine," I said through gritted teeth. "I'll pay the $150 because that was technically added before my payment cleared. But the $211? Absolutely not." "That's your choice," Brenda replied. Her tone had the smugness of someone who knew the rules were designed to screw you. "But failure to pay will result in additional penalties." "Oh, I'm sure it will," I shot back before hanging up. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the letter and my account statement, my stomach churning. How was this even legal? I had half a mind to drive down to their office and demand answers in person, but I knew it wouldn't get me anywhere. The next day I called the attorney's office directly, hoping for some clarification, or at the very least a sympathetic ear. The receptionist transferred me to some junior associate who sounded fresh out of law school. "Hi, I'm calling about a fee charged to my account for a notice to file a lien," I explained. "I paid my dues on time, but the HOA still sent my file to you. Can you tell me why?" The associate cleared his throat. "Well, ma'am, once we receive a file from the HOA, we're obligated to take action. Even if the payment was made, the HOA can still assess fees for the administrative process. So you're saying I'm stuck paying $211 for a lien notice on a lien that doesn't even exist?" "Yes, ma'am," he replied, his voice dripping with corporate indifference. I hung up before I said something I'd regret. Over the next few weeks, the saga continued. Every time I tried to fight the charges, I hit a brick wall. The HOA wouldn't budge, the attorney's office couldn't care less, and I was left feeling like a character in some Kafkaesque nightmare. My neighbor, ever the nosy bystander, loved to chime in with his 2 cents. "You should have seen this coming," he said one evening as we chatted over the fence. "HOAs are just legalized extortion." "Yeah, thanks for the insight," I muttered, rolling my eyes. But he wasn't wrong. "Got it. Here's the updated section with the additional paragraphs about consulting a lawyer." Feeling backed into a corner, I decided to consult a lawyer. I wasn't about to let the HOA walk all over me without at least exploring my options. I booked a consultation with a local attorney who specialized in HOA disputes. His office was tucked into a strip mall, sandwiched between a nail salon and a vape shop, hardly the towering skyscraper of a corporate lawyer, but he came highly recommended. After I explained the situation, he leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, and let out a low whistle. "HOAs," he said, shaking his head. "I see this all the time. What they're doing isn't fair, but it's technically legal." "So what are my options?" I asked, trying to keep the desperation out of my voice. "Well, we could definitely fight this," he said. "If we take them to court, there's a good chance we'd win. You've got proof of payment and a strong argument against these fees." I felt a glimmer of hope. "Great, let's do it," but he held up a hand. "Hang on. Before we get too excited, let's talk about the costs. Fighting this could take months, even years, depending on how the HOA drags things out. My retainer is $3,000, and you're looking at $300 an hour after that. Court filing fees, discovery, depositions, it all adds up. By the time we're done, you could easily be out 10, maybe 15 grand. My stomach dropped. 15 grand over $361 in fees, he nodded. That's the reality of fighting an HOA. Even if we win, it's unlikely the court will order them to reimburse your legal fees. You'd be eating those costs. I sat there, stunned. So what you're saying is, I can fight them, but it's going to cost me a hell of a lot more than just paying the fees. Exactly, he said. It's not right, but they know most people won't spend thousands of dollars to fight a few hundred in fees. They count on it. I left his office feeling defeated. It wasn't that I didn't want to fight, it was that I couldn't afford to. The system was rigged, and they knew it. By the time I begrudgingly paid the $361 in fees, I was more determined than ever to get out of this HOA hellhole. The thought of dealing with their petty bureaucracy for another month made my skin crawl. You know they'll just find another way to screw you, my neighbor said when I told him I was planning to sell. It's what they do. Let them try, I replied. Though even I didn't believe my bravado. As I handed over the payment, I couldn't help but wonder how many other residents had been bled dry by these ridiculous fees. It wasn't just about the money. It was the principle of it. The utter lack of fairness or accountability. HOAs sell themselves as a way to maintain property values and community standards, but all I'd seen was greed, incompetence, and power trips. When the time finally came to put my house on the market, I didn't even care if I broke even. I just wanted out. As for the $361, consider it the price of freedom. I don't think your neighbor is allowed to receive a certified letter on your behalf. If the extra fee is a result of your neighbor giving you the letter late, then you may have an argument not to pay, but this may result in you having to spend on your own lawyer. Doesn't matter because you didn't sign for or receive the letter addressed to you. I'd suggest having a lawyer draft a letter to your HOA explaining how these things work. HOAs prey on people who don't want to involve lawyers. Once they realize that you will play hardball over their sketchy fees, they usually back away. I'm no lawyer, but if I were to hazard a guess, and don't think I'm taking the HOA's side, but if I were to hazard a guess, the ultimate responsible party here would be the neighbor who signed for the letter. The HOA sent the letter out in good faith. They had no idea the letter carrier would deliver it to the wrong address. Either that or the post office is responsible for delivering it to the wrong address. I don't think you're going to get out of that $211 fee. If you pay it, it's up to you whether or not you want to take the neighbor to small claims to recover it. I'd definitely look into suing the post office though. HOAs.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.